Headbangers. Welcome back to the Headbangers Podcast, where your hosts Nathan and Brad here today for the final time. This is our goodbye video.
Yeah. Well, the podcast is we've decided to call it quits. I know this might be a little bit of a shock for a few people watching. A few people that we were like friends with and stuff like that knew ahead of time that we're probably going to call it quits. But like we're just kind of doing this video as a like a bit of a goodbye, honouring like what we kind of built like over the last few years, and then also like just going into why. So like, should we start on the why?
Yeah, we'll start on the why. So obviously we've been doing this for 4 years, and even when we look back at 2019 when we first started this, we're babyface.
It's 5 years. Yeah.
We're so babyface then. That shows how long we've been doing it. A lot of things have changed in our life since then. Multiple different jobs, different stuff going on. And we're very happy with what we've achieved through the podcast, but I think we've got to the point now where I think I can speak for both of us when, the passion is a tiny bit lost. We don't feel the same joy that we once did.
Yeah.
And we feel like we've done everything that we could possibly do with the podcast. We spoke to some of our heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I personally feel the same as well. Like, we obviously we spoke about it when we went on holiday, and like, to be fair, I agreed with you on it, because like we always agreed that when we started the podcast that if it ever felt like a chore, ever got in the way of us being mates or like that, we would end it. And it like, as much as we enjoyed doing it, it has started to become like that chore. On top of that, I think like both me and you want to focus on other stuff creatively, and we wouldn't be able to juggle all the stuff that we want to do separately if we're still doing this together, because in reality what's going to happen is we'll half-ass the episodes.
Yep.
And they wouldn't be as good as the ones that we normally would do, and we'd much rather just call it a day if we can't find the time for it than release anything that we don't deem as like good.
Yeah, and I don't think that we'd want to release some subpar content, and when it does feel like a chore, you're not putting your full self into it, and you're going to just release content that you don't care about, and if you don't care about it, then nobody else is damned to give a shit about it. Yeah. And like I said, Nathan said, we want to focus on other things. I've always been big into filmmaking, documentary, and I've kind of pushed that aside, which is something I want to pursue. Nathan, you want to focus more on music, right?
Yeah, I want to focus on music, because over the last 3 years, it's been a fucking meme for the podcast, but whenever I interview a band, it's my band, and it's just because I've been in loads of different bands over all different iterations over the course of the podcast, but there's been no music drop because I can't put the time in that I'd like to be able to even achieve that, and it's something that's just been put on the back burner. I think like for you with obviously the documentary work, I think it's something that's always been the kind of eating at me that I can't do it as much, and I imagine that's the exact same for you.
Definitely, and I think a lot of people, there's a misconception that a podcast is easy. You just go on, you switch on, you talk, and then it's just uploaded, and there's so much more than that. You've got to be a graphic designer, you've got to be an editor, you've got to be a PR person, you've got to do all this stuff. And when you've been working a full week of work and you do lose that passion, like it becomes like you're working 2 jobs at the same time, and it's just not fun. And like I said, I think that's when you might want to pursue other things. Yeah. And, we don't regret the podcast at all. Like, I think, the last 4 years has taught us a lot, and we're going to get into that because we have got a segment which we've got some submitted questions from some of our good friends of the podcast, people that have inspired us, but also people that have supported us along the way. And we will delve into some of those reasons.
Yeah. But on your point as well, like me and Brad both work quite full-on jobs. I think a lot of people would just assume doing a podcast is easy. You plug in a mic and you do it, but it's not just that. For us, because our main source of the content was interviews, you got to think like one interview that you might see might take me and mainly a lot of times you as well. You more, if I'm honest. Months of work of getting. And it's one of those even us doing the press at Damnation, that's genuinely takes us 3 people to be able to plan, to be able to get the people on, to be able to organise, to be able to schedule, and then on top of that, working the full-time job, even getting the interviews, sometimes aren't even segmented. We've had so many people that we would love to have been able to get on, just because we can't, just because we work full-time jobs, and unfortunately we can't do this as a full-time job.
Definitely.
And yeah, it is just so much work, and it is very, it has been very rewarding.
It has.
But it is one of those things where I think me and you, as we've gotten older and as we've taken more responsibilities and focused more on our careers as well, again, it goes into we don't really have time to do that, because the minute I get in, the minute you get in, the last thing both of us want to do is spend ages over email trying to organise something, or trying to sort of find something together, and then at the last stage it's like let's schedule it, and then find out that you're not available on the days they want, I'm not available on the days they want, and it does take a big toll on just trying to do that. It is very stressful of an experience.
Oh, definitely. No, I completely agree, and we will get into the thank yous and everything at the end, but enough doom and gloom. We've got one final episode for you, and we talked about those fan-submitted questions and, questions submitted by some of our good friends. So we'll get into it. What's the most nervous you've been before an interview? I'll answer this one first.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this might be the same for you or not, but I'd say for me, it would have been when we first spoke to Sean from Ingested.
Yeah.
Because I think that was our 5th, 6th episodes. And it was at that point where, we've interviewed a lot of friends of ours, really good bands. Ingested was like a band we were both massive fans of. And obviously Ingested are quite a household name now. And they even were back then, 5 years ago. So we were just shitting ourselves like, fuck, it feels like the first time, it's like almost like auditioning for something. And I just remember us both being before the Zoom call, like, what do we say? What if we're going to swell up? Like, what's going to go on?
Yeah, because we used to, when we first did those interviews, we used to jump on an hour before.
Yeah.
Like, that's how paranoid we used to be about, like, how anything wrong going. Like now, like obviously, like most recently when we've done interviews, me and Brad literally jump on 15 minutes before.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one, because I remember that was definitely the most stressed I've been prior to an interview. I was incredibly nervous for it, but because I remember I was working in Leeds at the time, and like I had to wait for a taxi to get home, and it took longer than I thought it would, and I literally had 1 minute to set up my lighting, set up the mic, press it in, and then go right. And it was genuinely nerve-wracking. I think another one was like Suicide Silence for me. Yeah, because like that's a band that I've literally grown up like listening to and was a massive fan. So like the idea, like it's one of those where it's like, even though at that point we'd been doing it for a few years, there's still that part in your head where it goes, you do get imposter syndrome where you're there like, why shouldn't be fucking doing this? Do you know what I mean? Like, why have we got this? Like, do you know what I mean? It makes you question it, and then, like obviously he was lovely, soundest guy ever, but with how me and Brad conducted interviews, we're not really the most professional. We're not,
which you probably would have known by now if you've watched any of our stuff.
And it's like one of those. It's like that type. Like Suicide Science are massive, and it was like one of those things. It's like, what if, you have it in the back of your mind, like, what if he's expecting, like banger level sort of stuff?
Like Metal Hammer or something.
Yeah, and it's like, and we don't live up to that part, and we should, and the interview suffers for it. Obviously, it didn't, because the guy was lovely and it was great. But you got that part in your back of your mind and you get that imposter syndrome. It's like, I really shouldn't be fucking doing this.
Yeah, and you get sort of like these misconceptions flying around your head that just like, like you said, that they're expecting this massive professional interview. Yeah, he's like these massive professional interviews that they're used to doing. And me and Nathan are going to rock up, and maybe you just think in their head, because me and, the Headbangers Podcast, we're very happy with how far it got. But, we were never like Metal Hammer big or Loudwire big. So you just expect, maybe think this is some small fries. Like, why should I give a shit about this interview? But then when you speak to him, like Nathan said, like, they just speak to you like a normal person, like, because that's all it is. And I think sometimes what I've found is some of these even bigger bands, they like to be asked stuff that they're not usually asked, which I think is what our strength is in that sense.
Yeah, that's. I think it's because when we first wanted to do it, we didn't want to be that. Like, we really wanted to like focus on asking, like our zombie apocalypse question. We've we asked like Memoriam that, and he was like, "What?"
Yeah.
But I think it was like it's good because we don't focus on like, oh, who was your inspiration growing up? Yeah, I mean, like, who was the person that made you want to pursue music? We didn't ask. Well, sometimes we did, but like, we tried our hardest every episode to make sure that we never asked questions like that and made it unique to that person. What's the thing you will miss the most about no longer having a podcast? I suppose that the biggest thing I'm gonna miss is, well, the interview side of things.
Yeah.
As much as it is a lot of work, like, you know, we've been very fortunate in the fact that now, like, I think me and Brad have genuinely got such great. Well, as well, it's the community side of it as well that I'll probably miss. Because I think the interview bit what I'm going to say with it is going to lead into that. But we've genuinely, I'd happily say we've literally got friends around the world.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, legitimately got, like, people that I still talk to and keep up with. A lot of the people we interview, like, we do genuinely get on with.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, there's a couple of people, you know, like, they do the interview and, you know, there's not a lot of interaction after, but, like, the guys at Tombstone are sending us memes on Instagram.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's the biggest aspect that I'm going to miss. It's being able to speak to all these different people with different backgrounds, you know, like, and different, like, life experiences, because a lot of them are also a lot older than us sometimes, some are younger than us.
Yep.
You end up learning a lot from people, and, like, in reality, the thing is about the metal community is literally the best community, because it is the purest thing. It's like, you enjoy this one thing I like, now let's be just mates. Like, that's the number one thing I'm going to miss is the interviews and the community side of it.
Yeah, honestly, I don't have too much to add on top of that. I completely agree. And I think, just getting to meet all these people, and, you know, some of these people, you know, they've released an album, or you've been fans of them for years. Like, they've truly been a part of your life even before you speak to them, because of the music that they bring out. And, you know, it means a lot to me and Nathan. So to get to speak to people and just hear them, like, decode their album and explain about it, or even just, like, talking about their lives and what they get up to.
Yeah.
I think one mystery for me that I've always found interesting is, like, before we even started the podcast, is like, I wonder what band members do when they're not on tour, like, because they just seem like this enigma, like, you know,
and they just do the same shit we do.
They do the same shit you do, or, you know, you can connect on other things that aren't music, like, you know, so many times we've connected to a band about, like, Lord of the Rings, or, like, gaming, or, you know, all this kind of stuff. And it just, like, you know, I think that's the thing that we love the most, is this connection with people.
That's the number one thing that I got enjoyment from it, is just being able to do that. And like, you know, like, we've literally, like, if you look at the people we've interviewed, it's literally around the world, and it's been incredible to be able to do that. Yeah. So now, if you're watching this point, we're now going to be saying the names of the people that submitted it. That we was going to do it, and then we forgot for the first two. So there's been a bit of a cut.
So it's going to be the most Headbangers episode that you'll probably see.
This is like the old. If you've been a fan since episode 1, this is like a throwback.
Yeah, it's the most typical you can get. I mean, we're not going to get professional now, but yeah, this question, a good one, submitted by a good friend Harry from Burner, says, "What has the experience of hosting the podcast taught you about yourselves, and or how do you think you developed as individuals because of the work you've done?" So, I think one thing that is quite interesting about having a podcast, and when I first started, I think that me and Nathan were both a lot more shy and unsociable than when we started the podcast, because, you know, I remember, you know, I couldn't hold that many conversations and, you know, speak as confidently, but even to be able to portray yourself, because I tend to be someone that mumbles quite a lot.
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of people couldn't understand what I was saying. So it means I had to pronounce my words. And because we were speaking to a lot of bands around the world that, you know, might not have English as their first language, you do have to pronounce yourself a bit better and just, like, speak a bit more verbally. But also, like, when you're doing a podcast, you need to be more coherent. You need to, like, portray your sentences in a good way.
Yeah.
So I think, like, in the weirdest way possible, it's kind of taught you to speak a bit better.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think, because I remember when we first started it, I mean, I wasn't massively confident, but I would say, like, you was a little bit more like socially anxious with certain things than I was. Now it's kind of flipped. The stuff you were socially anxious about, now I'm the socially anxious one about that thing.
Yes, the old switcheroo.
But yeah, like I'd definitely say that helped. That's the biggest thing that it taught me. I think what it taught me as well is the amount of ambition that we both have.
Yeah.
Like, I a lot of times before then we were genuinely content with just like going to gigs and kind of liking it and just talking about it with friends. But then like when we had the idea, we both, especially during COVID, we were, you know, like, we've always stayed ambitious towards it. And it's kind of made me realise that like, oh yeah, I do actually have a lot of ambition to be able to do that, and it's proved to me that I can sort of achieve some of the stuff I want to do. So like, definitely. I think that's something that it's taught me, where it's like, oh, it isn't a case of, oh well, I'll put it off, or I don't think I can do that. It's like, well, no, you just try it. Do you know what I mean? Like, half the shit we've done, if we'd never tried it, we wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. It's the motivational aspect of it, and especially because we started this during COVID because we had nothing to do.
Well, and
pre-COVID, yeah. And then I think it helps during COVID. I think it helped me to stay motivated because it's a bit like going to the gym. Like it helps you to motivate yourself in other areas of your life. Like because you're always striving towards something. Like it affects everything else in your life. Like it has come to the point now because we're burned out, you know, we do feel like it has become a deterrent, but for a longest time I felt like it only had positive outcomes, and you know, you felt like you could achieve other things as well. Yeah. And as well, like, you know, you're constantly trying to improve yourself, get better, and I think that's a great thing to have. Yeah, definitely. And it's improved my confidence a massive amount. So yeah, that's definitely been a good takeaway from it as well. So next, we've got a double question from our good friend Faye, which is the host of the Metalheads podcast. So, first question: as you wrap up this journey from your podcast, what has been the most rewarding part of sharing your voices with your audience, and how do you see these conversations you've had shaping your futures? That's a really good one, to be fair. I think the most rewarding thing was like kind of like it's not really too related to the podcast, but like getting to share that experience with people that didn't necessarily work on it all the time. Yeah, like Dylan and Connor, like they've, you know, like over the, like when we did Damnation for 3 years in a row doing press. Connor came with us the first time, then Dylan came with us, and then Connor again this year, and like we've got to kind of give him an experience that's kind of really cool, because Connor got to meet loads of bands that he liked, and it was the same with Dylan, and I think that for me, just being able to be like, oh, just come, and being able to give that experience to a mate that otherwise in any other scenario wouldn't have it, or even have it an option if we didn't do this, was just really cool for me. And really nice to see. See, I'm going to choose a more selfish version of your answer, which is the opportunities that it's given us. Yeah. Like when we first started, sharing our voice and doing the first few episodes, because the first 5 episodes or so, it was just me and Nathan. And then we started to try and balls it up and actually trying to DM some bands that we thought there's no way they're going to come on. But then we learned through that, like, if you don't try, you don't get. Yeah. So, we reached out, we got some people, and the more we did it, the more we realized, the opportunities are kind of endless. You just got to throw yourself out there. And, the more you connect with people, that'll open up new opportunities. And, the fact that we've got to do Damnation's press, 3 times in a row, is an amazing experience. And not to sound big-headed or all, but when you're there, you do feel like a top G, don't you? Yeah, you do. You're there backstage, you're seeing these bands, you're interviewing them, you're getting to go to all the press bars. Yeah, because we always made jokes. It's like when we got to walk past the line as well. It's like Connor was like, look at all these. They're having a waiting in a line, and it was like just kind of like you do feel really good because you're there oh yeah, it's like it wasn't just a case of I'm going to a gig, I'm getting to support the gig in a different way as well. Yeah. It was very rewarding doing that as well. Absolutely. So another follow-up question from Faye: Do you still think flavoured condoms are a curse?
Yeah.
Yes.
Who the fuck wants one?
No one wants it. It's a dick shrinker. To put it lightly.
I don't like it. The girl won't like it.
Yeah, flavoured, no flavour. Could be chocolate banana. Could be strawberry sundae. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, they stink. They stink worse than the latex ones. Yep. Latex ones have a bit of a kick to them, right? I'm not gonna lie. That latex just smells.
Yeah.
But the artificial flavouring with the latex, mood killer. Yeah. It's an absolute mood
Processed. Give me it raw and wriggly. This one's from our friend Connor. He helped start up the last Damnation and the Damnation before the one. So this
the first time we did Damnation,
first time we did Damnation,
and then this year
and the last time we did Damnation. Yeah. Yes, he's also our good friend. We've known for years. But yeah,
what's been the biggest surprise each? Let me start again. What's been the biggest surprise you each learned about the industry?
We both know what this is going to be.
The amount of bands that shit themselves on tour.
And we're not gonna name the bands, but I can categorically say at least a third of the interviews we've done when we've talked about funniest tour stories end in shit. So you can do the maths.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's been a staggering amount. If you want to watch all the other episodes, bump those fucking numbers up, boys. But yeah, if you want to watch the earlier episodes, the amount of ones, it's like, what's the worst thing that's happened to you on tour, was like one of our older questions. It all ended in so much shit related. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, someone shat themselves, they've got shit on themselves somehow. They've, shit entered the equation multiple times.
More than what you think.
Yeah. But yeah, way more than you think. Way more. Like Sean from Ingested getting food poisoning and having to run to the toilet. I mean, it didn't involve shit. I imagine later on it probably did.
But over the start of this, I was like, we won't name any names. You're like, Sean from Ingested.
No, it's recorded. You can go back and watch it, but he had food poisoning on stage and he had to keep running to the toilet in between sets because he had the wireless set up on his guitar to throw up.
Yeah, but this is what I mean, though. That's like the biggest mystery we've uncovered. Yeah, I mean, fucking whatever Imodium brand should be sponsoring tours. I think they make a right
sometimes Imodium. Sometimes.
Speaking of experience.
Experience, Brad. Imodium is a very weak dam. It can work, but not if the pressure's high enough that's getting through. I think another thing that surprised me about the industry is the amount of people that work in it that are genuine fans.
Yeah.
Like, it's... I feel like it goes without saying, but, like, I always assumed before I got into speaking to people in the music industry and stuff like that, I thought we'd at least run past a couple people. It's like, well, it's just a job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you'd think you'd eventually get... Like, it is a massive industry. Each record label has, like, thousands of employees. You'd think there'd be one guy there like, I actually don't like metal and like drum and bass.
Yeah.
Right? But each time we ever reached out to someone or met them in person that we worked with to schedule an interview, decked out in the merch, loved the shit.
Yep.
Knew more than us about like a lot of albums and were genuinely passionate about it.
Which is great to see. So we've got two more from our friend Connor. Do you want to go into that one?
Yeah. What's the band you didn't know too much about before interviewing them that you then fell in love with? I think for that question, probably for me was Wild Elf, because like there was a band that you'd listened to a lot, and then we had the opportunity to interview them, and I hadn't really listened to them at that point. So obviously, as a good like podcast host, I hope. But I spent that week that we was going to interview him, listening to him, and like doing my research. And yeah, the more that I kind of delved into it, I was like, I really like this music. This is really cool. And then the more that we've like learned about the backgrounds of it and everything like that from interviewing him, gave me a better appreciation for it. So yeah, I think that would be mine. The one that I probably knew the least about and was kind of like, oh, I was like, oh yeah, I haven't really listened to him, and that I then checked out because of the interview and then learned stuff about him and was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think, well, obviously, like I was a fan of Wild Elf, but I think what that might be a misconception of podcasts in general. Is like, if you've got two co-hosts, you know, me and Nathan like metal. We both love metal and we both love hardcore and stuff. But there's sometimes bands that Nathan will love and he'll say, oh, should we get these on? Or I would have had a band that I like, sure, should we get these on? But we might not know them beforehand.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, one thing for me, I think, was, and I think it was the same for both of us, was Drowning Sulphur. Like, we didn't know much about them before.
Because they reached out to us.
They reached out to us.
Yeah.
And the best way possible, you know, a lot of bands reach out and not all of them are very good. Or at least we're not proper fans of them. But Drowning Sulphur, when we checked them out, you know, we absolutely loved them and we spoke to them and they were super nice guys. And we've sort of like followed their journey and they've blown up a bit more now.
Yeah.
You know, doing really good stuff. Interesting original stuff in the deathcore space. And they just keep getting better and better. But I remember listening to that first EP, and I think they only had an EP out at the time, and it completely just crushed us both. And we did like a reaction video to one of the new songs. And I've been a massive fan ever since. I'm still waiting for them to do a UK tour, but yeah, honestly, like every album they've released has been amazing. The interview that we did crushed it. So yeah, I'd say that's a big surprise to me. I'm thankful.
Because thinking back on that, because that was during COVID, and I remember at that point, I don't think we'd ever interviewed someone overseas yet.
Yeah, might be.
I think they were the first ones that we'd actually interviewed that weren't from the UK. Because I remember being like, "Oh, this is I'm interviewing a band from Italy today." And that's the thing. Because like we had a number of bands that would reach out to us.
Yeah, and they were the only ones out of that list that slapped, in our opinion.
Yeah, Heliocentric as well.
Oh, Heliocentric is amazing, yeah.
Because I remember, like, because during COVID, like, this was before that we, like, because later on, it became a lot easier for us to sort of schedule interviews and book them and get bands that we really, really wanted to get as well. Because after doing it for so long, we kind of built connections. We were on the press list for, like, obviously Nuclear Blast. We were on, you know, the Noise Cartel mailing list. We were on loads of mailing lists where it was like, this person's available, and we had contacts that we'd worked with before that we could get in it. But at this point, we didn't have any of that, and it was like we were sat there and because me and Brad in COVID, we were like, you were like, oh, is there any metal forums that you know of? Because I'm struggling to find a band for interviews. Like, I think at that point, everyone that we messaged never got back to us, and we're like, kind of like, well, what are we gonna do for like an interview? And you were like, well, let's just see, let's just post on a forum, see who answers, listen to them, and see. I still got Facebook like friends requests from that post to this day. I think I got 600 replies on it in a day, but like. Because of the flood of it, it was so hard to pick anyone out, and I was like, I don't know, Brad. And then you were like, this guy's actually pretty sick. I checked him out, and I really like him. And then we was like, yeah, and I liked him as well. And when we booked the interview with him, then we found out he was in a religious cult, and it was like, when I watched that episode back, that was one of the maddest,
one of the most interesting.
Yeah, like one of the most interesting for one, because it went on for it was a long interview, and he was they had just really cool stories, like the religious cult one being one of them. And it was just crazy.
This is upbringing, and then just like talking about like psychology for most things, like, you know, fear and, you know, being scared, and just like all these kind of things that lead up to that. Yeah, we just like, you know, we put metal aside from it, and we just talked about a bunch of stuff, which I think is some of the most interesting stuff, because me and Nathan like to go on tangents, and I think some of our favourite episodes, and we just chat shit for like, you know, an hour and a half, but that was like a really engaging conversation, so yeah, I'd agree with that as well.
Yeah, and that was like
really big fan of his music as well.
Yeah, he made really good stuff, and that was like one on the, because I remember we prepared loads of questions for it, because now we treat the questions as like the baseline.
Yeah.
But like it wasn't the meat and potatoes. Whereas back then we used to make like pages of questions, and I don't think we asked. I think out of the page of like 20, I think we asked like 4.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. We got another one from Connor, the boy. So, interesting one. What's the most and least enjoyable part of researching? So, I can go first on this. I would say the most rewarding part is when you manage to find some interesting stuff about a member that you're going to get on, and you know that maybe they might not have heard this before. We might as well spill the beans in our research because we are ending it. But, we would do a few different steps. We might look at articles of, when they've been interviewed. So we might look at like actual video interviews. We'll look on their Instagram. We'll try and like look at every possible forum we can.
Professional stalkers, won't we?
Yeah, it's like being a professional stalker to get good questions. And then so that leads into the other rewarding part of that, which is when you do ask it and they are, I wasn't expecting that. And I think that's the best part when they come back at the end of it. The questions are really good. Like, we out of all the interviews we did today, that was the best one, and I think that's the best compliment and the best, most rewarding part of the podcast that we've got.
Not to toot our own horn, we've gotten that so many times on almost every single episode, right? That was
fuck
sick.
You, Loudwire.
Yeah, fuck you, Loudwire.
Beat that.
Yeah. I agree with you on that point. That was the best part about it. But I feel like
the least part.
Alright, I'm just gonna go out and say it because me and you have talked so much shit about this. When there was whenever we had like a band on that hadn't done like an interview in like there's been times where they hadn't done an interview in like 6 years.
Yeah.
And then you'd go on their Instagram and you'd be like, there's nothing. There's literally nothing. So it's like from that point it was you can't. That's why when I said like that we didn't ask generic questions. Those times were the only times where we had to, and it felt wrong doing it.
Yeah, I felt dirty, like we're just eating like a dirty kebab at the end of the night.
Yeah, that was the worst part. It was like because there'd be multiple times where when we interviewed bands where I'd call Brad and I'm like, I don't know what to ask, and he's there like. I remember lots of times I was just being thick and just not looking in the right places, and you'd be like, no, just check stuff out like this. But there'll be some times when I'd call you and you were like, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. And you're like, yeah, I feel like we might have to go generic on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like those times where it's like, and to be fair, that also sometimes maybe go, all right, so I'm not being an idiot. Do you know what I mean? Like,
no, I think, and this isn't, I don't know.
This isn't a dig at bands.
No, it's not a dig at bands. And I think sometimes it can be down to, and not to toot our own horns or anything, but I think like, this is why we ask interesting questions and stuff that about the bands, that they might not usually get asked. Because if it's all generic questions like, how was the album cycle? Like, if that's all the interviews you can look at, to get some inspiration, it's going to be really hard for anybody else to ask any questions. And, but I think just if you've got Instagram, show people your lives, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many people that are interested to see what you're getting up to. And I think, that is the best thing about social media. It's definitely been a curse in a lot of aspects, but the fact you see bands like communicating with each other on social media, like having a laugh with each other, having some memes, or just like posting about their lives, it not only makes it easier for interviews, but I think as fans of the music as well, it's an interesting insight for everybody else.
Yeah, that was all. Again, it's some people don't want to share it, but like share their lives and stuff like that. But like, I think my biggest pet peeve, as much as it is really cool, was themed Instagrams.
It's cool to look at.
I mean, it's cool to look at. But a lot of times, the only question I could ask was like, "Who does your Instagram?" Do you know what I mean? Like that was like
me.
Yeah, and you're like, how do you come up with those ideas? It's like, just pick like
I like the calls, yeah.
Yeah, and that, do you know what I mean? Like you'd hit a brick wall sometimes, and you'd be like, I can't ask that because I can see it just being a very one-worded answer. Yeah, whenever we interviewed a band and I saw a themed Instagram, I was like,
Little running.
And then like you'd find interviews and you'd be like, oh yeah, this is a cool thing they've said. Let me ask what they think about that now. But there were some times where it's like, fuck.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you were like, shit, what am I gonna do? So this one, I've got it on my phone. We didn't have time to print these ones out. My question comes from our very good mate Wiser. You saw him in the Damnation vlog we did.
Vlog?
Yeah, and the Bloodstock
2023.
2023. Yeah.
I thought it was a second.
Yeah, I keep thinking. Tangent. I keep thinking this year's 2025.
I know.
I'm like, it's 2025. I'm like, no, it's not. But yeah, this question comes from Wisey. What's been your favourite thing about doing the podcast? And what has it made you both achieve? I mean, it's similar to some of the ones from earlier, but I feel like it's open-ended enough for us to like sort of fill it in as well. I'd say favourite thing. The best thing we could do was the highlights for me was whenever we got guest lists.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like we're probably like,
it's
but
cool.
It was so cool. Like just getting like a band that you'd interviewed. It was one of those things where it's like, they remembered me. You know what I mean? Like they'd message you and they'd be like, you want guest lists? And it's like, it made you feel really good because it's like, well, we must have left a really good impression.
It's not just like a generic interview they've had to do. It wasn't a chore, like, and you've managed to
you've managed
a friend from it.
Yeah, you've not. It wasn't like a case of like, oh, fucking yeah, but and they just kind of like forgot about you. It was a case of like we've literally left a lasting impression, and that was like I mean, there's been cases where we've literally interviewed a band and then a year later they've messaged us saying, well, we're coming to Leeds or we're coming to Manchester. Do you want guest lists? Yeah. We'd love to meet you. And it was kind of like, it's like one of those things. It's like after like a year from interviewing them, you're like, oh fuck yeah, and it was so cool. I think the highlight for that was like getting to when Kim did it for us, when he messaged us. Yeah. And he was like, oh yeah, we're playing at Key Club. Do you wanna come?
Definitely.
And I've still got that laminate that he gave us. Like,
yeah.
And that was really cool. And then got to hang out backstage and chat to him for a little bit after and stuff. So that was like really cool. I think just another thing, obviously we've mentioned it before, but getting to interview people. Another thing was like that it's only happened once or twice, but being recognised from the podcast, that was really cool.
Yeah, that was very good.
Because you had one at Bloodstock when I wasn't there, and then when we got Boom for Sanguisuga Bog, some bloke came up to us and he was like, "This is a really weird question, but are you guys Headbangers Podcast?" And we're like, "Yeah, how did you know?" He went, I've been listening to you all day at work and I heard your voices first, and I was like, what the fuck? So those were really cool experiences. And then I think it's like the friends we've made along the way. Yeah,
I know we've touched on this already. Like, it's the community that you built. A lot of people that we've spoken on Twitter are our good friends now. And just, it's getting to have chats with people, like, beyond the interviews, and just like building those connections is really, really cool. And again, just, when you do have an interview and at the end of it they say, wow, that was really fun and I enjoyed that. I didn't feel like I was even doing an interview. I just felt like I was chatting and shooting the shit. Because I think when people say that, it's what we intended from the start with the podcast. Like, we wanted to make a space where it felt like you're just having a chat at the pub or something with your mates, where it's not like a big formal interview. And because we're so fucking unprofessional, it generally has that vibe anyway. But it's nice to hear someone say that, because it feels like you've paid off and what goal you set for the podcast has been achieved. Yeah, and no, that is also one of the things I was gonna say. Like Bangers and Mosh, like they're genuinely good friends. Fair, genuinely good friends. Harry from Burner, genuinely good friends, and since doing it as well, like it's really, we used to. I remember before we did it, me and you, we used to go to gigs with just our mates. Yeah. And I can't remember any time in those gigs where our mates had to wait for us because someone had that we knew had saw us. Yeah. Now that happens every time we go to a gig. There is someone that we knew from the podcast there, and it's sick to see them. Do you know what I mean? That I feel like we could go to any show, and at some point we're going to run into an actual mate that we've made along the way. Absolutely, and that's also really cool. So our last and final one, right, is from
again, another great mate, Al from Coffin Mulch. Listen to Coffin Mulch. They're fucking amazing.
Yeah, amazing band.
But yeah, Al from Coffin Mulch. His question was, what's the next best podcast about metal everyone should listen to now that we're going? In brackets, I vote Bangers and Mosh. And yeah.
We also vote Bangers and Mosh.
Yeah, we also vote Bangers and Mosh. Those guys are incredible guys. You know, Jimmy, Daz and Deffer.
Yeah.
All amazing people. They really have a passion for the music. They're I keep saying they're nice guys, but they are genuinely amazing people. Because every time we've only met them like a handful of times in person. We talk a lot online, but every time like we see them, they come at us with such warmth.
Yep.
And such just genuinely like just kindness. It's really cool. And first time we met them at Bloodstock, it felt like we were meeting friends that we'd known for years that we'd never like met before, and it didn't feel like it was like awkward at any point. It just kind of sorted into place, and they're genuinely great people.
Definitely, and I think in terms of their podcast as well, like they really balance like the comedic aspects, but also just the amount of research and knowledge that they have about bands. Like I most of the time, I just turn to them to like, I'll message Daz and I'm like, right, what's the good albums of this week? You know, because I'm just looking for all the shit. Like I don't know what to listen to, and you know, it's always on point. And you know, they do the monthly roundup of all the best albums. Like it's generally stuff that's informative, entertaining, and delivered by the bestest dudes. And as well, if you have to give a second one, has to be Vox and Hops.
Definitely.
And I can say that there wouldn't be Headbangers Podcast without Vox and Hops. You know,
in many ways.
In many ways. You know, when we first started the podcast, because me and Nathan, I think you told me about Vox and Hops for the first time. Obviously, I was a massive fan of Cryptopsy for ages. And I saw them, you know, years before we even started the podcast, and, you know, loved his music. But, you know, he brought me on to Vox and Hops, and like I'd spend like every night I'd just listen to the podcast when I was just eating my food or just going to the gym or something, and I loved it. And I think, you know, he asks some really interesting questions, like he goes beyond the generic. He's got the whole craft beer element, which I think is really interesting. And again, that has the whole sort of like pub with mates kind of vibe, because you're having a drink with people, you're getting to learn the first drink they ever had. And, you know, Matt did help us out with the podcast a lot. You know, I remember when we first started, I reached out to Matt. I was like, we really want to start a podcast. We just don't know how to do this, and this. And like, you know, he didn't really owe us anything to try it, you know, to try and help us. But he gave us so much good advice of starting off. And, you know, we later then had him on the podcast. We had him on for a New Year's special. You know, we've had drinks with him. Nathan's had a few drinks and gone out for a bar crawl with him.
Yeah,
super
I
nice
blacked
guy
out.
who still speaks to now.
I blacked out and I got way told. I don't even remember leaving the bar. But yeah, no, Matt he's kind of been like our podcast dad. Like whenever we needed advice, he was always there to give it.
Yeah.
And he's also given us so many opportunities. And every time this is a credit to him. Every time we're like, oh Matt, we're thinking about doing this. It'd be nice to like sort of have you in the video. He's done it. I mean, like he's never like he's never not been up to do something. Yeah. He's always been like, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's a big shout out to Matt.
Yeah, massive shout out. Like if you know, like people that we are on streaming services more because we've had to cancel the subscription. But the guy that managed to get us onto streaming service was Matt. We didn't know what the fuck to do to get it on streaming services. We only knew how to upload it on YouTube. We literally, I think it was 2 episodes in.
Yeah.
We messaged Matt and we're like, how do you do this? And straight away it was like, this was before he came onto the podcast.
Yeah,
and
much before.
Then they were like, yeah, you just sign up, I use this. And yeah, and each time like we've ever like, I think struggled with how to do something, we've dropped him a message and he's like, just do this. This is what I do. And he's been very forthcoming with information and just all around a stand-up guy.
No, I completely agree. So yeah, big shout out. Check out Bangers and Mosh. Check out Vox and Hops if you haven't already. They are killing the podcast game. So right, moving on to our next section.
So on this section, I think we're gonna react to some old our first videos.
Yeah, so we're gonna go through our first ever episode. I can already see from the thumbnail. I mean, fucking hell, we look like 2 years old.
Do you know what? I don't remember us having that cartoon logo for that long, but it was it's the thumbnail, isn't it?
Shout out to Michael Murphy.
Yeah, Michael Murphy made us a cartoon of us.
A funny fact about that thumbnail. Well, our profile
It's
picture.
been our logo for ages,
Well,
but
not only that, but it's actually unfinished. And he was actually really mad that we use his unfinished work and just use it for the remainder of our podcast life. When he wanted to finish it, but I don't think he ever got around to it.
I didn't even know that was unfinished.
Yeah, it looks good though.
Yeah, it looks good.
Right, let's crack into it. The audio cut out.
Yeah,
But fuck it,
I was
let's
like,
do it.
I think I stood on it. I'm not gonna lie. I think I stood.
I was tipsy on this one. Do you remember?
Oh yeah.
Because we'd filmed an entire episode. So tidbit of information about the first ever episode. That was recorded twice in one day.
I was gonna say this starts off exactly in Headbangers fashion of just like not working.
Yeah, that was recorded twice in one day because when we started it, we obviously wanted to record our shit. So if I'm not mistaken, there's like Brad bought these two really cheap mics from Amazon.
Yeah, that was shit.
And then he bought like this really cheap HP laptop, and for the life of us, we never could figure out. I'm still convinced that the mics were never the issue. I think the issue was us.
Yeah.
But we were like, these mics are shit. So we did an entire episode for an hour and a half. It didn't record any fucking audio. And so then, like, I'd already gone through like a case of of beer. So I was like almost steaming.
At least we were like more confident for the episode.
Yeah, so then like Brad went, you want to just do it again?
Fuck you then. And I'm also pretty plastered at the minute. I feel like I should mention that. I feel a bit pissed.
Shout out to Blue Moon.
Yeah, shout out to Blue Moon. We had a couple.
Look how young you look though.
I know.
You're also jacked.
That's what we want to be.
So yeah, we're also going to be interviewing like local bands and stuff.
Yeah, again these shitty mics. We had to we were so scared of moving that we had to like stay in place.
But fuck me, Loudwire, can you not find any other cunt to ask about stuff? Yeah? Like, ask just Nicky Six from Motley Crue or something like that. Ask some other generic fucking, like, guy. Like, why the fuck, every time I open up Loudwire or like that, yeah, I don't fucking listen to you anymore. Banger TV's a lot better. Shout out to the Banger TV. No, but like, every time I go on your fucking website, it's Corey Taylor's.
I was so opinionated back then as well.
Oh my god, yeah! I can't wait to get to the bit because you used to rip on everything. You're like a burns picker.
Yeah, I was a hater. I was such a professional hater. I think that's one way I've matured over the years.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're still a bit negative sometimes, but
yeah.
I feel like compared to what you were,
yeah, I fucking hate everything.
I know.
Rob Flynn, fuck you. No, I'm honestly, I don't like the cunt. Even if he watches this, I don't give a fuck.
Okay,
I hate that. Yeah. I hate that.
Look at how
I've hated that ever since we recorded that first episode. Every time I watch back it, for some reason, Rob Flynn there was nothing in that episode about Rob Flynn, but I just decided to.
It's like Rob Flynn's got killed the whole family or something. Man, you had it out for this guy.
I think at the time I just really hated him, and I don't know why. Because now I actually really respect him.
Yeah. I don't know what he did. the music wasn't great for that period.
Yeah, that era of Machine Head was fucking awful.
Do you know a funny scenario? If like Rob Flynn was just like on YouTube and he came across this, and
maybe that's why we've never had the opportunity to interview Machine Head.
Maybe that's why Rob Flynn like brought Machine Head back to its form, because he saw the interview and he made him depressed and he was like, "Fucking hell, I need to return."
Yeah, no, I hate how opinionated I used to be back then. Like, fuck me. I would punch younger me in the face if I met him.
So angsty.
I've noticed it's like I got into metal super quick, didn't I?
Yeah.
My first gig, by the way, was Suffocation.
I know, that is definitely throwing yourself in the deep end.
Yeah, my first gig was Suffocation. At this point, I'd only ever listened to really Korn and stuff, and then I went to go see a Suffocation gig. So like, I got into metal really quick. So I got into like death metal and black metal really fucking quick.
This has been that has been a segment in every episode.
I feel like any opportunity you've got to bring this up, you have done.
I have, because I felt like it was like, hang on,
I feel like Suffocation need to like give you some sort of like award or something.
Yeah, I have brought it up a lot. And I think it's just because I think it's like mad that
I didn't know if you've just forgotten you've mentioned it every time or if you just know and you still want to
part of it is also because I've genuinely forgotten I've mentioned it. There's been so many times where I've watched our episodes back and I've said the same thing, and it wasn't until someone else has pointed it out that I didn't know. I was like, I didn't know I mentioned that before. Cue 50 videos.
Orchestral sort of music. Yeah. You probably will like
you might
this
be a bit,
album.
You might be a bit put off when you think it's going to be an orchestral album and then you get...
No, but I think you could like this album. There's a lot of opera sort of vibes and there's a lot of orchestral vibes anyway.
Oh, another thing that I know that we say a lot is we say like elements a lot. But one thing I'll say, right, there's only so much you can say about music that you have to use the same words, whether it's juggle, whether it's elements, or whether it's like hard, brutal. Like, of course the music is complex, but there's only so many ways you can say that about a song.
Yeah, especially as well, like, because if you go, there's so many things in it.
Yeah.
It makes you sound like you don't care.
That just makes you sound like illiterate, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many things in it.
See, we put elements in there.
Yeah, there's so many elements. Do you know what I mean? That sounds better. I will say this.
It's quite good.
I will say this, Brad. I remember back then you put so much
effort into the editing.
Yeah. But it was not needed at all.
That with the little strobe light.
Yeah, because I think at the time we were always like thinking, because it was. I think at the time YouTube was obviously was the only thing that we uploaded it on.
Yeah.
So we always thought like, oh, it's got to have an intro and it's got to be cool, and got to be funny or something like that. And then when we like switch to streaming, we're like, well, no one's probably going to watch the YouTube video anyway.
Yeah, we felt like
more
it
people
needed.
listen to it on streaming. So we just didn't bother anymore.
Yeah, I wonder what happened if we just did those like effects and everything that we did.
Yeah. I imagine this was on... I don't think we ever uploaded this on streaming.
No, it would. I think it might have been on stream, but it probably was a different edit.
Yeah.
It's very video heavy, this one.
A great warm welcome to the best upcoming band, which is Godder. Oh my god! He's here to accept the award. You missed your cue, you daft bastard. Here to accept the award is Dylan from Godder. So here you go, Dylan.
It's an honour to just be nominated, but to actually win an award, you don't expect it. You know, it means the world.
Yeah, this was when we asked Dylan to come round in like with an hour's notice to accept his Godef award.
Oh yeah, of course.
Because we messaged Ed first, and Ed was in the bath.
Yeah.
And said he couldn't do it.
And then Dylan said, "Oh yeah, I'll come."
Yeah, and then
he was on the server for most of it.
Yeah, he was. I remember just every now and again you'd see him off in the corner like that.
Yeah, it's like we had a smoke machine and you just see like a little vape just like
no TV or all. We were just staring.
Staring into the abyss.
Because I don't think he wanted to get his... I think he was on his phone once or twice, but I don't think he wanted to get his phone out in case he was like, right, it's your turn, and he was like, had to... So he was just kind of just staring off into the distance.
Like on standby, just waiting for his moment.
Bill Bozeman. Thank you. Bill Bozeman from Whitechapel. Thank you. Whitechapel. Bill Bozeman. Thank you. Thank you.
Do you know how long that fucking keyframe took?
Yeah,
to match your face to it. It took me ages.
You know, when you sent me the early edit, part of me was a little bit disappointed, right? Because I was half...
Disappointed?
Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. It was still funny, but half of me was expecting you to do like you know the fucking, like in South Park when it's got a Canadian character. It's like,
yeah.
I was half expecting you to do that, and I thought that would be fucking hilarious, and it wasn't there, and I was like, oh.
Listen, mate. I mean, this alone took about an hour to do.
I know.
Never mind doing the fucking South Park stuff as well.
Yeah, that gag, I really reined it in for a bit too long on that one, to be honest. I should have walked through that door a little bit earlier. So yeah,
guess
that's it, isn't it?
So yeah, that's it. That is the last Headbangers podcast episode. Hope you've enjoyed it. Like I said, So none of our stuff is on Spotify and streaming service anymore, but all of our episodes are still on YouTube, so you can go back and watch them. I think it's good to end and just say like a massive thank you. Again, we've mentioned it in some of the episodes, but of people along the way that have helped us out on the podcast and supported us. Obviously, Matt from Cryptopsy, Vox and Hops, helped us out a lot in the beginning, so big shout out to Matt. Big shout out to Bangers and Mosh, they've always been hugely supportive of us, and also great friends.
Big shout out to Faye.
Shout out to Faye as well. Again, really supportive of all our episodes.
Shout out to Joe from Nuclear Blast.
Shout out to Joe from Nuclear Blast for organising all that stuff. Jasmine, as well from Noise Cartel. You know, a lot of people that have made this happen. Shout out to Gav from fucking Damnation Festival, who's got us on 3 times. Really amazing stuff. Also, shout out to our mates as well. You know, Connor, Dylan. You know, Dylan from GodF. They both helped us when we've done like our vlogs at Damnation, of us helping us interview and carry stuff, as well as, you know, film some of the B-roll. So yeah, big shout out. And
just thank you to every single band that has spent an hour talking shit to us as well. It's been like obviously great to meet so many people.
Great, surreal.
Very surreal in a lot of cases, and crazy that we've been able to do this for that long. And most importantly, thank you to anyone that's watching this. I know that we don't get a lot of viewers, but there's definitely people that watch it all the time. I know there's people that watch it all the time and really enjoy this podcast. And I'm sad. It's sad to say goodbye.
Yep.
Might not be for the last time, but definitely for now. But yeah, I mean, thank you just for putting your time into to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
Me and Brad ramble to strangers on the internet.
For sure, yeah. No.
5 years.
But yeah, honestly, biggest shout out to the people that watch. Like Nathan said, you know, we're very happy with what we've done. We're very happy with who we interviewed, and we're happy that people tuned in to watch the episodes. Like I said, they're also there, so go check them out. You know, we've done at least about maybe even 200 videos. I can't count, when we obviously, it wouldn't be Headbangers fashion to actually count how many we've done and shout out.
I have no fucking clue how many episodes we've ever done.
But yeah,
I think we've passed well over 100. So
well over 100, yeah. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for all the opportunities. Thank you for everyone that supported us. This last Headbangers. Goodbye.
Bye bye.
We love you.
Love you.
Sweet. That's it.
There we go. That's a wrap.
Yeah.
Headbangers.